Somebody made this up. Oh, yes. Logical Planning for 1992. Translate. This is your next 4 years. We are very lucky to know approximately what to expect in the next 4 years on this planet. I will not go into the case data, and the reason we know this from earlier games that Thetans have played and so on, and current scenarios they are playing. But I just give you what to expect in the next 4 years so you can be ready for it, and we will survive very well. I'm making a timeline here with 88 on this side, 92 on that side, 90 in the middle, and we see 91, and, 89, 89 and 91. Just 4 years. Okay. Now, first, let's look at the fact of one scenario that is finished, and that was the one that was active in the 60s and 70s to reintroduce the fear of the atomic catastrophe of 75 million years ago. I drew an atomic blast there, and that's ended.
We can't see from here.
Yeah.
Put aside, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
That was the one LRH was concerned about and wrote about in many policy letters. He was afraid that the planet might start dramatizing it and actually do an atomic war again. As you can see from the news stories and in life, that is becoming an ever-decreasing possibility. So I don't have to advise you to build a fallout shelter. Unless it's just fallout from pollution. Okay, but that scenario was just to throw everyone into fear, plus all the terrorist scenarios and economic scenarios, to prepare the world for the one world government plan, which was to annex it to Markab as the 8th planet. And that was going on behind the atomic scenario and was to occur in 1992. So we have a high possibility here of the one world plan to be finished here. That was the one world plan originally planned. I've written up there, one world plan of Capt plus the implanters was supposed to be greater than the rest of the game. Okay? And that was supposed to be finished in 1992. However, in 1986 and 7, we did a lot of Excalibur work, and we managed to create, with the help of the Galactic Patrol and others from off-planet, we managed to create a split, as you will find in the Sector 9 book, Latest News from Sector 9. And that made the Markabians and implanters basically go apart in their plan. Now, instead of one planetary takeover group, there are at least two, maybe more. The main ones are the two branches of this. The Markabians now loyal to Capt and are abiding by or following the non-interference decree and the free zone decree and just trying to do an administrative control, an economic control, which is permissible. It's not atomic, biological, and chemical warfare, is it? So that is permissible, and they are working it not on the whole planet, because they're not all together yet, only on Europe, including Russia and the satellite countries of Russia, and extending that throughout the world. So we have the One Europe plan now, changed from One World plan, the One Europe plan for 1992. And that is going on right now in this continent. Okay. I've written up there an arrow to 1992 showing One Europe plus Russia and Comecon. And you can now see, we saw this 2 years ago, but now the people of the world are being informed of it in the newspapers, seeing all this close cooperation between Russia and Gorbachev and Bonn and England and everybody, and getting trade agreements, training agreements, adding agreements, trucks coming back and forth, trade relations bettering and all that. Atomic weapons being taken away. Huh? All happening. Just like we saw it was going to happen in 1986. And when we said it then, everybody said it never happened. We might have a war any day. Now they see it. So that is one thing to prepare for, definitely. We'll go into that in a minute. The next vector, what happened to this group, the implanters, they're mostly controlling the behind-the-scenes governments of America, and they have some operatives in other countries such as France and Canada. And they have operatives in Far East countries, although Japan is mostly aligned with this, although you got to watch them because they're playing their own game. It's another thing. Japan is playing in between these two. They have 1 foot in each camp right now. Sort of like England is trying to do. So they are following. What plan are they following? Hey, guess what? They're following the original plan, which was laid out by Zenu. That's out. Now, we've isolated another vector in this. And the other vector, surprisingly enough, or not surprisingly enough, is the third world. When this split happened, the control over the third world became less. And the third world now has a sort of a vector of its own. And they are somewhere in between these two plans and the free zone idea. So we can put the third world also going along here in a sort of a wavy line because they're not right sure what they're going to do because they're not really having an off-planet planetary scenario. But as the third world, they do exert a force. And this includes the big and small countries of the third world that are in debt to these guys, are pressured by these guys with atomic weapons and all that, and are just sick and tired of the whole thing. All right? It's a wavering line. Now, just so you don't get overwhelmed, all right, we also have a vector in this. And our vector is essentially to bring the new civilization awareness to the planet and to present to them the rules of the free zone decree, which means that everyone must be brought up to the point where they can decide for themselves on which way the planet goes. Free zone decree and a new civilization idea with it in that flow. Because the free zone decree applies to all of these. The free zone decree applies to all. If you read it in Sector 9, you'll see it does apply to the whole planet. But the idea we're implementing it with is the idea of a new civilization. That the old one didn't work very well. Now, do you see now why it may be difficult for your normal person out in the society to plan for 1992? Yes. There's a lot. So one thing, the first thing we can say about this logically, just logically, is between now and 1992, there will be a lot of confusion. Okay, so number one, what do you need for planning for 1992? One, there will be lots of confusion. Everyone understand that? All right, good. Now remember, this is about how you're going to plan to survive and expand during this period. I'm not telling you what we're doing, what they're doing, and all that. I'm just telling you how it'll be easy to survive. If you want to know the scenarios behind it, read Sector 9 and go up the bridge. Okay? Okay. Now, let's look at what the major contenders, the major forces here, Markavians, implanters, Third World, and us, all have as common denominators. We're all depending right now on economics. That's how you were able to attend this convention. You paid. So economics, with all this conflict, will be unstable. Too much conflict. They're going to fight to get the other guy's control and get his bank and get his money and take over that oil-producing nation and all this. You understand? You see it in the news every day. But now we're analyzing it. All right? Economics will be unstable. All right? Now, we know that the press are controlled by these major groups. All right? So, one thing we do know, and you've already seen this in the papers, that whatever you see in the papers, you may see a different story in the next paper, and the same paper may change its story the next week and say something totally different. Guy who did a suicide last week, today another newspaper will say it was murder. So, data will be conflicting. Okay, so far, so good. People, through these confusion, unstable economics, and conflicting data, what will happen to the average person in the society? All right? His awareness level will be pushed down to where he cannot evaluate, he cannot hold on to a truth anymore. All right? So he will be uncertain about the future. Uncertain. Some of these people will be very certain about the future because they're part of the planning or part of the scenario that's moving toward it. But the rest of the people, the ordinary people out there you're doing on the bridge, will be uncertain. Okay? Okay. That's why I'm giving this lecture. Now, there are things you can be certain of. Totally, absolute, 100%. One, two, three, four. So, already you are in possession of more certainty than anyone else on this whole planet for the next 4 years. Now, the question now of how you apply your certainty about these things will depend on where you live on the planet. Number one. All right, I've written up there, you're handling, and it depends on where you locate, where you are located on the planet. In other words, your location. Because if you're in Europe, the stable datums over here that will work may not be the same as if you're living in America. Because a different group is trying to take over there. You understand? Okay. It will depend. Now, we're looking at, again, economic side of it. It will depend also on your business, your profession, your Geschäft. Okay? So it will depend on what you are, shall we say, doing for exchange. What product, what service are you making? I wrote your product or service or job. It depends on that quite a bit. Because if you're in the wrong business, that whole business may go bankrupt, out of sight, you know. For instance, if you're producing hypnotic sleep tapes in Europe, you might go out of business within the next 2 years. But if you're producing them in California, you may become a millionaire. And if you're producing them in the third world, you may be killed. They think you're the CIA. Understand, this is all very well evaluated, very true. Number 3. It depends on your, viability. Your viability. All right, I'll explain that. The viability is the ability to live or to continue living. To a player, it's the ability to continue playing a game and having fun. Having fun. Okay? So, continue to live, living, or surviving, or fun, or play. Viable. All right? Now, L or H. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I'll put it down, then we'll talk about it. Okay, so where you're located, your product, service. Now, the other one is because you have a product and where you're located and so on, your viability will depend to a great deal on your communication lines and your exchange factors. In other words, how can you sell your product? How can you get exchange for it? So we could separate that into comm lines and exchange. All right? So let's look at it like that. Okay? And the one other thing is, of course, the stability of value in that area. In other words, what is valuable in that area? I'll just call it the value units or the stability of value in the area. It could be money, it could be gold, anything. Or antiques, stamps, coin, whatever. But this is so you can get an exchange. You have to have something valuable or you can't go and buy food with it. Or pay the rent. Now, I can't tell all of you what to do about this because you have to evaluate it yourself. But I gave some examples on location. And of course, your product or service or job, you better look at something that will still be valuable in 1992. I can make a plug here for the tech. That will still be valuable in 1992. Even more valuable probably than it is today. Okay, but outside of that, what will be valuable? We know that people all need to eat. They need to have shelter. They need transportation. They need exchange. They need all these things of a new civilization. So any new civilization project that improves the quality and viability of life, especially on the fifth and sixth dynamics, meaning lambda and phi, meaning life forms and matter, energy, space, and time, any product that improves that quality will become more valuable. That's another evaluation from data, from case data, but it's true. All right? So one products and services that will be helpful, valuable, are tech, spiritual tech, and fifth and sixth dynamic products. Okay? And that includes services, like even gardening. You can still be a gardener in 1992. There will be a place for you. Have you noticed the environmental concern that's coming up even more and more amongst all political parties and even in the press? That is the fifth and sixth dynamic unhandled case problem that is coming up to the fore, mainly because we're waking up a lot of life that has been formerly suppressed, and we're bringing it to demand a handling from the rest of the players in the game. And that fifth and sixth dynamic are going to help you, and they're going to demand a handling from all the other players. Because you're the ones that are helping them, and you're waking them up, and you're bringing them to life. The other people are going to be forced into compliance with that by their own bodies, by their own environment. That's coming from the free zone vector up there, right? That's the... All right? Now, the viability, LRH defines, we're looking at a minimum viability is to be in possession, right, of enough reserve value or energy or goods or whatever you need as a reserve to survive for a minimum of 2 years without any further income or inflow. That's viability. Okay, now at this point, I realized I was going to have to say this to be truthful with you, and you'll probably say, well, why didn't you call this convention last year so we could get ready? Because we don't have 2 years worth of reserves sitting there now, and we only got, what, how much longer do we have before it starts? It starts this month. For sure. It will start November, December, this year. Those 4 things will become very big. They're only behind the surface now, but boy, they're pretty much in the news, but nothing to what they're going to be in the next 2 months. The confusion, the instability, and all that. Uncertainty, confusion, instability, and conflicting data. So excuse me, I knew I had to give it to you before it started, but I also gave you a terrific steep gradient of say, you know, how am I going to do it in the next 2 weeks? Get 2 years of reserves piled up. Well, the good news is, that it doesn't have to be in money. Simon. Well, they have the lunch break. Okay. It isn't only money. In fact, some of the currencies might fluctuate rather rapidly in the next months and years. You have to look at, simply, if you want to evaluate currency, just look at this. Is the country's currency, is the country that issues that currency, are they basically a, what do you call, an exporting over importing nation? In other words, do they have a balance of payments positive or negative? If they have a positive balance of payment, the currency will probably be good. That means they can pay their debts. And they're not going bankrupt. Also, if the currency is based on gold, it will be good. There's not many like that. I think the Swiss currency is based on that. And Germany does have a positive balance of payments. Okay. And so does Japan. And so does Saudi Arabia. And so does a few other places like that. Okay. Now, how valuable will gold be? Because gold is an old, ancient method of exchange. Gold will remain as an old, ancient method of exchange. And as in the ancient days, all the way up to present time, 1 ounce of gold will buy you 1 cow. It has never changed in 2,000 years. No matter what they say about the price and everything like that, all they're telling you is the price of a cow is going up or down. In whoever's currency, they're giving the price of gold. The gold, cows, I think it's 2 gold ounces for a camel, whatever it was. That's been stable for 2,000 years. 1 gold ounce for a cow, 2 gold ounces for a camel. And you can do that anywhere in the world. So that is, for your reserves, it is good to have a part of it in gold, because you know, even if your currency fails, and even if your country gets all, no more jobs there and all, if you have a few pieces of gold, you could go to any country in the world. I'm sure the gentlemen in India would even accept that, right? You bet. Okay, so it is good to have a bit of your reserves in gold, just as a stable datum. Because, remember, stable datum aligns confusion. But the currency you choose on your exchange should also be to have in your reserve for these 2 years build up, for these 4 years, sorry. You build up the 2-year reserve in your 4 years. We're hoping you can do that. And by that time, if you're doing that, you'll be the only surviving people on the planet. The other people will waste all their money and think, I'll buy it now before the inflation gobbles it up and all that. And then I'll use my credit card until they throw me in jail. And they will. Okay, so, but as I say, it's not all you need. A bit of gold, a bit of currency. But you also need a profession that will survive, and you can always get value with that profession for the next 4 years. As I said, training is one, and whatever area you live in, you can evaluate what is going to be valuable there. 5th and 6th dynamic products, you know. Maybe you can sell gadgets that prevent people from being implanted. Yeah. Maybe you can sell accounting machines that help people figure out how the Markabians are cheating them. I mean, like, you know, a trick, you know. How much money does the bank make when they delay your check for 2 weeks? And how many people's checks are delayed for 2 weeks? And how much does that make them? Okay. All right. Now, the last point I want to make is I wanted to give you this data because stable datums will align a confusion. You can survive and you can be very viable by the end of 4 years. Your comm lines in exchange would also be best with other groups and people you know are going to survive the next 4 years. So I wrote there, groups of people who will survive in the next 4 years. Your comm lines in exchange, in other words, your public, whoever you're doing business with, like this room would be very good, the best probably public you could have for the next 4 years, and probably all the other people that are connected with Ron's org and so on, these people will survive. No doubt about that. The next groups you have to look at is which groups are pushing a vector that will survive or a positive purpose. All right? Okay, if that group, you know, if they're pushing a positive vector, then you probably could exchange with them or invest in them and help them, and they will survive. If you know the data in the Sector 9 book, and you know this data about who's fighting for control of the planet, you know what location and which side these guys are on, you can pick it out very easily what to do with your investment, or your time, or your effort, or your products. Okay? Now, does that answer the question of how to plan for the next 4 years? You do the rest. These are just the basics of what to evaluate with. If we do it right, all of our vectors and all the vectors of all the beings we're auditing will push the survival vector of the free zone further and further and further ahead. And whoever's supporting that vector will survive and be more viable and more viable and more viable as the 4 years go on, and we will reach 1992 and be in a much better position than anyone else on the whole planet, case-wise, financial-wise, viability-wise, and having fun at the same time.
All right.
All right. Okay, that's the end of this lecture, and the next cycle is lunch. And they're waiting 15 minutes. You rush back to the dining room, and we get our lunch, okay? And then the seminars will be here afterwards.